Good morning. We are waiting on an update from Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo right now about an officer shooting that happened overnight. What we know at this point is that the officer was shot 3 times under his vest. There's the podium now. They should come up to speak at any moment. Until then, I want to fill you in on what we know went down. About 10 o'clock last night, several suspects went on what police are calling a crime spree, and it started with a carjacking in the southeast side. After that, those suspects, we know it's 4 or more, allegedly attacked a priest, robbed him of his phone, beat him up, attempted to shoot him, pulled the trigger twice, but the gun jammed or wouldn't discharge for some reason. A few minutes later, officers caught up with them. They were able to catch one of those suspects and get him in custody. Another one exchanged fire with officers. That's when the officer was hit, again, 3 times under his vest. The suspect was killed in that gunfight. Police also tell us they arrested another one of the suspects. It's possible another is still on the loose. We know that the officer who was shot is a 5-year veteran of HPD. He's 29 years old and he's being treated at Memorial Hermann. We haven't gotten any real status updates about him since. That's what we're hoping to learn at this press conference that's supposed to start any minute. We're also hoping to learn just more about him and what we know about the situation that unfolded overnight. We're waiting to hear from the priest, from the victim who was carjacked. We do have surveillance video we want to show you that's new this morning from the scene, and you can see the incredible police presence. Check out the officers running. Now, if I understand this right, this is surveillance video from first before the shooting and after, Jaime?
That is correct.
But you can see how many officers were on the scene responding, looking for these guys who were clearly causing trouble in the area. They wanted to make sure there weren't any more victims here. I want to give you a live look. Let's take another look at the podium there. They should be coming up anytime. We were told the press conference was going to start at 9 a.m. We have a full write-up of everything that went down as we know it on khau.com if you want more details. But again, as we wait for Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo to take the podium, we're waiting for more information about this officer and his condition. We do know he was speaking when he was taken to the hospital, so that's positive. But beyond that, we just don't have much more information right now. We have a reporter, Michelle Choi, who's been on the story all morning. Brett Buffington, our reporter, covered it last night. These are the folks we need to talk to get the information that we're waiting for. So we're going to leave you with a live look at the podium. If you have questions and comments, you can leave those. And while we're waiting for Chief to speak, I'll go ahead and answer what I can. I want to thank everyone who's joined us waiting for this press conference at Houston Police Headquarters to start. We're waiting to hear from Police Chief Art Acevedo about an officer-involved shooting that happened overnight. An officer sent to the hospital. He was hit 3 times under his vest. We were told the press conference was going to start at 9 a.m. It obviously has not. We're told it could be a little while before it begins. So I want to kind of cover this story again for you for those who are just joining us. It all started about 10 o'clock last night on the southeast side when Houston police say several suspects carjacked someone at a convenience store. Not long after that, police say the same suspects confronted a priest, beat him up, robbed him of his phone, and attempted to shoot him, pulled the trigger twice, but the gun didn't discharge for whatever reason. It was only a few minutes after that that officers caught up with those suspects. They were able to chase down one and get him in custody. They got into a gunfight with another one. He is the one who officers say shot the officer who is now in the hospital. In that exchange of gunfire, that suspect was killed, and we know another suspect was taken into custody as well. There may be another still out there. So we're waiting for more information from Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo about the officer, about the condition he's in. We know he's a 5-year veteran of HPD and he's 29 years old, but beyond that, we don't have a lot of information. Now, the chief did speak last night on the scene, and the first comment you're going to hear from him is about gun violence in the Houston community.
We were in Washington on Monday talking about gun violence in our city, in our community, in our country. And I don't want to hear from politicians tomorrow about how much they care about my cop. If they're not here to talk to us about solutions, don't bother showing up to these police departments. And I'm not speaking for the mayor. This community stands with this police department. See, because when you go beating on priests and you go pulling your guns out on people gassing up that are working for a living in a working neighborhood, guess what this community does? We stand together like we did in Hurricane Harvey. So to that suspect that's out there, to his family, you go, you turn him in, you let him turn himself in safely.
So there you hear that impassioned comment from Chief Acevedo. You saw Mayor Sylvester Turner standing next to him. It's unclear whether he's going to be at this press conference that we're waiting to start, but we may hear from him as well. There have been so many instances of officer-involved shootings, so many instances of gun violence. It seems like every day here in Houston, and you can hear that frustration in the chief's voice when he talks about one of his officers being a victim and about the support the community has for his officer, for HPD. That's obviously why so many of you are tuned in. You want to learn more about this officer, how he's doing, and what we know about the investigation. There is no movement, as you can see, at the podium for the press conference that was supposed to begin about 10 minutes ago. I was checking our live feed to see if there were any comments or questions that you had. You know, a lot of folks are, well, Beth says some people are rude and disrespectful in these comments. That is absolutely true. Rhonda says we have to do better. She does say we have to address the problem with guns. Some people are talking about that gun reform. A lot of prayers for the officer. And some people are speculating about why we're having this wait. It could be any number of things. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We never really do. There could be a change in condition for the officer. There could be new information, a development in the case. So you don't want to speculate really about what might be causing this delay. We know that this has been set for a little while. We know that a lot of folks are eager to hear from Chief Acevedo about the circumstances in which this officer was shot and how he's doing. Want to show that surveillance video again, Jaime, if you can pull that up, and so you can just see their response from Houston police, kind of the search for these guys as they were making their way through the southeast side. Again, I mean, when I got in trying to process what had happened on this scene, it's a lot. So we have a carjacking, we have a priest robbed and beaten, we have a gunfight, an officer shot, a suspect dead, a suspect on the loose, suspects in custody. Hopefully we can get a real clear timeline from the chief, but yeah, just an incredible response from HPD trying to catch these guys when they were out there last night. And it all started, I said, around 10 on the southeast side. The shooting happened about 10:30, so a pretty tight time frame in which it all went down. Trying to see if there are any more details I can share with you.
Another thing to also note is how after the initial carjacking, the suspects did pull the trigger after assaulting the priest, but for some reason the gun did not go off.
Yeah, they pulled the trigger twice.
Correct.
And it didn't discharge for whatever reason, which is a pretty remarkable detail in this whole thing that a lot of people are commenting on. And we don't know if it was the same gun used in the shooting with the police officer. Hopefully that is some information that we will receive very shortly.
I also know we are.
Sorry, I'm watching the podium room. They've changed the shot a little bit in anticipation, I think, of the chief walking in, but he still hasn't. That officer is being treated at Memorial Hermann. That's where he underwent surgery overnight. Again, he's only 29 years old, and he's been serving with HPD for about 5 years. You had something you wanted to add, Jaime?
Well, I know we're hoping to get an update on the priest and his condition. We do know, fortunately he wasn't shot, but he was assaulted. So we're hoping to get an update on his condition to see how he's doing this morning. Because still, this is a very, very violent crime spree that took place overnight.
I mean, just think about the headspace you have to be in to rob and beat a priest, to shoot a police officer. I think it's hard for normal people to be in that mindset. Almost.
Another thing to note too, I guess, is that this initial carjacking, happened while a driver was attempting to get gas at a gas station, and when they took his vehicle, and then of course the vehicle ran out of gas because he didn't.
He hadn't filled it up.
So, which adds another sort of strange element to this whole situation.
Yeah, so for context, guys, the carjacking happened at 10 at the Valero in the 5800 block of Scott Street. And then the SUV that they'd taken off in, the 2003 Chevrolet Tahoe, was found in the 6200 block of Tierwester. So, not wildly far. That's where they ran into the priest on Marybur. I may not be saying that right, Marybur Lane. And then it was only a short time later that police found those suspects near the HEB on Tierwester. It is kind of a complicated story. We're hoping for more of a timeline and for more details about the suspects that officers were able to apprehend. So we know 2 are in custody. 1 died in the gunfight with officers. And there is 1 still out there. Again, this is a press conference that was supposed to start 18 minutes ago now. We are still waiting to hear from Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo. He tweeted early this morning, just 7 hours ago, that this press conference would be held at 9 a.m. We are there. We are ready to go. As I mentioned, we had reporter Brett Buffington on the scene last night. Reporter Michelle Choi covered this all morning. She's there now in the briefing room, waiting for this press conference to get started, as we all are. Karen asks, did the priest go to the hospital? And I don't know that we have that answer.
We have not gotten an update on his condition or what kind of treatment he required. Only that he was, was beaten by this group that carried out this spree.
Irma's also asking how the priest is doing. That's another update we are hoping to get in this press conference, Irma. I apologize. There are so many details we just don't know yet. And we launched this live stream hoping to get you those answers at 9 a.m., but we ourselves are still waiting on those. Sorry, I'm scrolling through comments right now to see if there are any more questions I can answer.
I will say thank you to all our viewers who are offering up their thoughts and prayers for the officer and the priest who were victimized in this crime spree.
And the poor man who had his SUV stolen as well.
Him as well, yes. You're praying for a fast recovery for everyone involved.
I apologize for not having more answers. I know that's so frustrating because you tune in for an update. We're supposed to get that information from the chief any moment. We were initially told 9, and then at 9 they said it would probably be 5 to 10 minutes. We're obviously 20 minutes on now, and you guys have been so patient because I know you really want that information as much as we do. The timeline of what happened and how this all played out, how they caught up with the suspects, what went down in that gunfight, how the officer is doing, more about who he is, how the priest is doing after that beating. It looks as though people are walking into the room. This is positive progress. Jaime, can we, oh, no, but it's not the chief. That looks like City Councilor Brenda Stardig. Sorry, I'm watching, our monitor is way over there, so when I'm looking off camera, that's what I'm watching. Doesn't look like anyone else is coming into the room right now. The video you're looking at right now is the scene from last night. After the carjacking, after the robbing and beating of a priest, after shooting a police officer, and after a suspect was shot and killed. A lot of flashing lights out there. Someone asked, is it true the suspect died in a backyard? We don't have that information either. Only kind of the general area where that happened. I understand the shooting happened at Tristan and Scott. Is that right?
Yes, that sounds correct.
Mm-hmm.
So I know we are waiting to hear Chief Acevedo speak and give us an update, of course. But we'll go ahead and replay. He did speak overnight with the Mayor Turner alongside him, and he was very upset when it comes to the issue of gun violence. So let me just play that for you real quick.
Thank you, Jaime.
We were in Washington on Monday talking about gun violence in our city, in our community, in our country. And I don't want to hear from politicians tomorrow about how much they care about my cop. If they're not here to talk to us about solutions, don't bother showing up to these police departments. And I'm not speaking for the mayor,
So that was Chief Acevedo overnight, speaking after his officer had already been transported to the local hospital with the Mayor Turner alongside him, and he's definitely very upset. And this is not the first time we've seen him react this way when it comes to the issue of gun violence in the Houston area.
I wanted to answer a question from Danielle. She says, I don't understand why they stole the SUV. Did they rob someone before they took the Tahoe? All we know is that they held up the owner at gunpoint while he was getting gas at the Valero station in the 5800 block of Scott Street. We haven't heard from that victim, so I don't know if they also robbed him or if they were just looking for a car, because sometimes that's the case when we see these crimes happen. Obviously, they probably wanted one with gas and weren't anticipating running out so quickly and then having to run on foot. But as far as the priest, we know they took his cell phone. But no, I guess, motive to speak of. A lot of prayers for the officer, a lot of prayers for the priest. We appreciate everyone who's tuned in and who has had the incredible patience to stick with us for now 26 minutes. Here's Chief Acevedo at the podium. He just stepped up.
Guys, we've got the robbery folks here. Come on in. So, first and foremost, I want to say thank you. We all want to say thank you to the community for the thoughts and prayers for our officer who remains hospitalized. He's in stable condition. He had surgery last night that lasted several hours. I want to say thank you to HFD and our brothers and sisters over there that did a phenomenal job. I want to say thank you to the officers on scene who I believed helped to save the life of our officer. And obviously the nurses and doctors and the entire staff at Memorial Hermann. They do a phenomenal job. We're very blessed in this city, in this region, to have a medical center that is really the envy of not just the state and this country, but of the world. We know that there's a reason leaders from around the world show up in Houston for medical treatment. It's because we have the best of the best. And then I want to just again thank our Mayor Sylvester Turner for always being there with us and being there last night, and obviously council member and everyone else. Again, our officer is stable. He went through surgery. The round in his lower extremities, as you can imagine, it caused a lot of damage. But he will be in the hospital for a while, but we're very hopeful for a full recovery. Now, anyone that knows anything about gunshot wounds, especially to the lower extremities like that, you always have to worry. I'm not a doctor, but I've been around, but I'm an old man. You always have to worry about peritonitis and other issues, and that can be deadly. So let's please keep lifting him up in your prayers. I'll go very briefly over what happened. I think you all know what happened, so I'm not going to give you that much of a timeline except a very high-level overview. You all know this started at the Valero gas station, where this crew of 4 male suspects went and carjacked a man that was getting gas. He explained to them that he was on fumes, and, well, they didn't listen because they took the truck anyway, and very quickly found out he was at the gas station for a reason. They ran out of gas. They abandoned that vehicle. After that, they ended up at a church parking lot where they approached a priest. And my understanding is he's already been out there in the media somewhere. They robbed this man at gunpoint. This priest has indicated he was on his knees praying for his life when one of the suspects pulled the trigger twice. And again, for whatever miraculous reason, the firearm did not discharge. But that wasn't enough for them. They then beat the priest and assaulted the priest physically, took 2 cell phones from him, and continued on their crime spree. Shortly after that, they were in the 3700 block of Odin Court, where they approached a female, another victim, who was in a F-150 pickup truck. They knocked on her window with a pistol, ordered her out, ended up robbing her of her cell phone, her purse, and demanded her PIN to her debit card. They then went on in that vehicle, continued down to the Scott Street area where the HEB Chase parking lot, Walgreens at Center there, and they, at that point, ended up getting out of there. Several of them got out of the vehicle there. Our officers, as they always do, they don't run away from danger, they run towards danger. And when these calls started coming out very quickly, as you all know from the timeline I gave you yesterday, we were in the area very quickly within a matter of a couple of minutes, and obviously ended up having this incident occurred. The officer-involved shooting occurred with one of our officers from one of our street crimes unit gave chase to the deceased suspect. He chased him for quite a distance. They ended up in the backyard of a house on Tristan. Am I saying that street right, folks? Tristan, right by Scott. Ordered the suspect to the ground. We have body-worn camera footage of all this. At some point, a struggle ensued. The suspect actually shot our officer, and several shots were discharged. Exactly the sequence of events is part of our investigation that will continue. The suspect shot the officer. He went down. When the secondary officer was coming from opposite direction, ended up hearing the gunshot, seeing the officer goes down, being told by his fellow officer he had been shot by the suspect, and that officer discharged what appears to be 1 round, striking the suspect. Unfortunately, the suspect died at the scene, was pronounced quickly. We actually rode from the DNC yesterday debate, which was about 2 or 3 miles from there, about maybe under 5 miles from the location, which is Chief Finner, and we actually, our officers called for 2 ambulances that were there very quickly. We were able to get our officer in the back of the ambulance and get him over to the hospital, and actually were able to get HFD to go back immediately and check on the suspect, and unfortunately he was deceased there. And I say unfortunately because, you know, we loss of life, any life, that's somebody's child, somebody's loved one, and It's unfortunate for those families when these things happen. The investigations now will be a twofold investigation. We will conduct parallel internal investigations with our Internal Affairs Division that will look at this from start to finish to make sure that we follow policy and procedures, and the Special Investigations Unit that you all know we started here when I got here in 2016 when the mayor brought me, that does phenomenal work. We'll be conducting a parallel criminal investigation looking into the actions of our officer that shot. And the district attorney's office will conduct their own parallel review, obviously, of this incident that ultimately will more than likely go to a grand jury, because that's the way it works around here. The officer that was shot, again, has been on the department for 5 years. He's the son of a 42-year-old vet that was at the hospital last night, and he will be in the hospital for probably at least a week. And we're just praying, again, that there's no complications and that he fully recovers. The investigation is ongoing. We're still on the scene. There's a lot of shrubs up there. Continuing to conduct a thorough search. We have not identified the deceased suspect yet. The ME is working on that. One of the suspects that's in custody out of the 4 is a 17-year-old individual who will be facing charges. Our robbery division, I want to thank them. They were out there. Officer Neely was out there, and his team and their team was out there last night, been working throughout the night, and charges, felony charges, will be forthcoming on that suspect. There'll be charges on a second suspect that's in custody that are forthcoming, and we're not going to go over all the specifics yet because it's still fluid and ongoing. And we have one suspect at large. To the suspect that's at large, we're going to get you. We're going to find you, because of one thing that I know about the city of Houston that is a very special city that we all love. Every single one of us up here loves this city, love this community, is that when you go on a spree of violence in a matter of minutes, and you carjack an individual at a gas station, you're part of a criminal crew that went and tried to shoot a priest while he's on his knees praying for his life. You then go and you carjack a woman in her driveway, and then one of our officers gets shot, and but for the grace of God, he survived. One thing that we know about this city is that people care about the safety of their neighbors, they care about the safety of strangers, and they care about the safety of their police officers. We're going to get you. So you might as well just come out now, turn yourself in, because it'll be much better for everyone and much safer. If you know anything on this incident, you know anything about the suspect, please call Crime Stoppers or call HPD right away. But we are going to get that individual. Without opening up any questions, and if the council member, the chairwoman, wants to say something in a minute, I'll turn it over to her. But any questions that I can answer.
How about the ages for the persons who are in custody? One is 17, the other one is...
How old's the other? 39-year-old male. Yeah, and we're, again, we're not going to talk about their criminal histories, but there are criminal histories that will come out later.
The gun, when the suspect was using it on the priest, didn't fire, might have misfired, but then it was working whenever...
Well, that's part of the investigation. Which firearm there was a struggle with our officer, which firearm was discharged, was the officer disarmed? We haven't talked to him yet. Was he, there's something that's really important, because I think it's something that is frustrating for me as a law enforcement professional, that the media sometimes and people that want to try to paint law enforcement with this broad brush that we don't care about human life, the sanctity of life. When an officer is in a violent struggle with a suspect by themselves, and they're sitting there fighting in the middle of the night in a dark alley in a wooded area by themselves, there is always a gun in play. But we hear time and again in our country that police shot another unarmed suspect. They forget there's always a gun in play. police officers get murdered with their own guns on a, on a regular basis. I know that if you look, they're shot or wounded on a regular basis. So I would say that, again, you got to look at the totality of the circumstances. And I would always caution people to not use that. Another unarmed man has been shot. Well, what were the circumstances during that? What were the actions of the individual that was shot? What were the actions of the officer? What was the totality of the circumstances? And there's a difference between being caught, being the fight for your life, or control your firearm, or being the fight for your life. When I had an officer in Austin, that the suspect grabbed his cord, anybody have one on, ripped it from his radio and started choking him with his own cord, and then started fighting for the officer's gun, and the officer ended up, before he lost control of his firearm, shooting him. His name was Mr. Bradley, and everything was about an unarmed person. No, there was a person that was attempting to kill an officer with his own cord, and it was trying to disarm the officer with his own gun. And you can find that. That's out on the internet somewhere. What else? So we're still investigating to see. There's a potential that he was shot with his own firearm. We don't know yet. We're still working on that. Yes, sir.
Chief, at the end of the update you gave overnight, according to the note that I'm seeing, so correct me if I'm wrong, that you asked the community to pray for a 15-year-old male. That you didn't
Yeah, let me
know
talk about that. Look at,
what you were referencing.
when we were at the hospital last night, and hospitals in the middle of the night, there's not visitation. So you're in a trauma center, and there was an African-American family there, and a pastor that we happen to know. And, hey, pastor, what's going on? And a father of a 15-year-old young man who had an injury, a spinal injury, and was in surgery. And you start thinking about that family and that young man that, it just touched my heart, and I wanted to I don't want to say more about but I do believe that God will know who you're praying for. So pray for that family and that 15-year-old boy who had that spinal injury. The thought of that young man not fully recovering, we know what spinal injuries can lead to. And I just believe in the power of prayer, and the good Lord will sort it out. Just put him out there for that 15-year-old young man and his family. And so that's what I was talking about is, and you wish you could do more to support them, but we had our own issues last night. But I know it's confusing. But I just hope when somebody asks for prayers, I just hope people just trust you to pray for what you're asking for, and the good Lord up above, if you believe in it, or karma, the cosmos will sort it out. Let's just set it up there for them. So, and I plan on going back to the hospital today. We're going to go after the award ceremony and talk to, I'm going to find that family. Anything else?
Was there any video surveillance cameras at the service station?
Yeah, that's all part of the investigation. We're not just looking at the service station. We're looking at, we'll be canvassing neighborhoods to, where the young lady was, the woman was carjacked in her driveway. We'll be looking through we will be recreating the actions and the path of travel of these suspects for the next couple days. If somebody has home video or any video, we would ask that they turn over to the police department. We do have body-worn camera of the two primary officers involved in the actual officer-involved shooting incident, and we won't release it because that's not the protocol here with this in this county. But I've described to you a lot of what we saw in that video.
Chief, was your officer wearing a bulletproof vest?
Yes.
He was told he was. So
Yes.
how exactly did he?
Well, underneath, obviously, underneath it.
So all three shots were underneath?
Well, we haven't definitively, that's part of our investigation, how many of the shots. We know they had 2 wounds up here. We're not sure of it. We're not quite sure yet exactly if that's a 1 shot or if it's 2 shots or if it's some other kind of injury. The one thing I know for certain is that the shot underneath the bottom of the vest into the lower extremity and the gut area did allow damage, and so, but that one for sure was underneath the vest.
Gotcha. So originally we were reporting that he was shot 3 times.
Well, there were 3 injuries. Now we got to figure out whether You know, if you're in a struggle and that's when the shooting occurred, from either the suspect having the gun or with his own gun, that the suspect overpowered him, which is again part of our investigation. You know, when you're fighting and somebody takes your gun, if that's the case, it could have gone this way. We don't know definitively, but we're working. That's part of our investigation.
And just to clarify, that woman who was carjacked in her driveway, so did they take her truck?
Yes, they did, and they drove over to the shopping center at Scott and the other, Tristan, and that's where they got out of the car. 3 of them, I believe we took one of the suspects in custody in that pickup truck. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did we take one, or is it the other truck? But the bottom line is they took it there to that, and that's where you got them out. Anything else?
Cooperating with you guys?
One of the suspects did give a statement. And again, we're interested now in catching that fourth suspect.
Do you have his ID?
Say again?
Do you have the fourth suspect's ID?
We're working on it. We have not yet, but we're working on it. And I'm telling you, he's going to get caught. So if you love the guy, because let's face it, when you're involved in something like this, you're going to tell somebody, right? If you love this guy, you need to tell him to turn himself in, or you need to tell us where he's at so we can safely take him into custody.
Chief, was there any indication that the suspect tried to navigate around the officer?
That's too soon to know. Yeah, too soon to know.
More about the suspect at large, is there anything more you can tell us in terms of what people, I mean, obviously keeping their ear fresh to somebody.
Yeah, we're looking for a black male, adult. Do you have a further description you want to put out?
Nothing right now, Chief.
Nothing else, but we know it's going to be a black male.
As for the officer, are you releasing his name by any chance?
Not yet, not yet. We want to really make sure that, personally, my preference would be, and I'll talk to the family, is we know that one of the suspects has some extensive gang affiliation. I want to get some more information, try to get this last suspect, and then at some point we will, but there's no rush right now for us.
He's 29 years old, he's been with HPD for
5 years, yeah. 29, been with the department for 5 years.
Chief, what's the age of the deceased?
Say again?
The age of the deceased?
We don't know yet. Emmy's,
don't get too
Emmy's working on, well, I gotta do Spanish real quick too, and then I'm gonna let to see if the councilman wants to say anything.
You mentioned that.
Okay, last question in English, I'm gonna do Spanish, and I'm gonna ask the council member if she wants to say anything, and we gotta get to the academy for an award ceremony with we gotta celebrate excellence at the academy here in a minute.
Chief, you had mentioned that you knew him from your time in Austin. Can you speak about that?
Well, you know, look, he's kind of a character like his dad, and when he graduated from UT, you might find this surprising, but I do Twitter. I know that's news for everybody. I'm on Twitter, and I found this tweet on the graduation date from this kid that's right by Austin PD headquarters, with a picture of him by the Austin PD headquarters sign saying, "Hey, I just graduated from UT and I want to be a police officer." And I don't remember exactly if he said he was thinking about Austin, and so I actually tweeted back, and that's how that relationship kind of started. Now he ended up here. He found out, he knew in his heart that I was going to be the chief here. That's why he came. No, I'm kidding. He came to be here with his dad, and his dad's just a great guy that's been around for 42 years. And I know the council member knows them both, so I'll turn it over to her in a second. Let me do Spanish real quick, the council member, and then we'll get going. Okay, en español. Bueno, quiero para pensar, ¿cuáles son las estaciones en español? ¿Cuáles son? ¿Ustedes dos? También. Quiero darles las gracias a la comunidad por sus oraciones para nuestro oficial. Ayer, ¿se acuerdan que anoche tuvimos 4 sospechosos afroamericanos sospechosos que cometieron una serie de asaltos, robos con armas de fuego? Sabemos que en la gasolinera Valero asaltaron a un señor de su troca que estaba echando la gasolina. El sospechoso, la víctima le dijo: "No tengo gasolina, casi no hay gasolina". No le hicieron caso, se llevaron el vehículo, y al paso de unas cuadras se acabó la gasolina. Salieron de ahí, entraron a un parqueo de una iglesia, a un sacerdote, y lo fueron a asaltar al punto de arma de fuego. El sacerdote estaba en sus rodillas pidiéndole a Dios por su vida que no lo mataran. Trataron de disparar 2 tiros con el arma de fuego. Por milagro de Dios, no disparó la arma de fuego. Golpearon al sacerdote, se le llevaron 2 teléfonos, se lo robaron, Y entonces, después de eso, en unos minutos llegaron a 3.700 cuadras de la calle, la Corte Orden, y una muchacha que estaba en su camioneta parqueada en su driveway de su casa, tocaron con una pistola en su ventana y la sacaron de nuevo al punto de arma de fuego. La asaltaron, le quitaron su cartera, le quitaron sus teléfonos y también le pidieron su número para su ATM, tarjeta de ATM para sacar dinero. De ahí fueron a Scott y Tristan, donde está el Walgreens y el H-E-B, el Chase, el Banco Chase, y ahí uno pensó, pararon ahí y a unos minutos unos de nuestros oficiales empezaron a caer atrás a uno del sospechoso. Lo encontró en el patio de una casa en la calle Tristan. Se fajó con el sospechoso. Todo está en cámara de la policía, que tenemos nuestra cámara, y a un punto el sospechoso hirió cuando disparó a nuestro oficial. El otro oficial que venía de la otra dirección escuchó los tiros, vio que su colega estaba herido. El colega le dijo que estoy herido, me disparó, y a un punto ese oficial disparó contra el sospechoso. Nosotros estábamos cerca del debate del DNC cuando todo esto ocurrió. Fuimos inmediatamente para allá los jefes y yo, y llegamos, pedimos 2 ambulancias que llegaron. Gracias a Dios nuestros bomberos llegaron ahí bien rápido, nuestros paramédicos llevaron al oficial y desgraciadamente el sospechoso falleció en la escena. La investigación sigue. De los 4 sospechosos tenemos 2 arrestados, uno de, how old was the male? The 39? De 39 años, uno de 17 años, uno que falleció que todavía no sabemos quién es, esa es parte de la investigación, y uno que estamos buscando. Le suplicamos a la comunidad, si es testigo en este incidente, por favor, llámenos, por favor, reporte lo que vio, porque esta persona es peligrosa y queremos llevarlo y traerlo a la justicia. Quiero darle de nuevo las gracias al alcalde Turner, que como siempre estuvo ahí para apoyarnos, a la comunidad que nos están apoyando. Nuestro oficial tuvo una operación de varias horas anoche, sigue en el hospital, pensamos que va a seguir en el hospital por lo menos una semana. Es un oficial de 29 años de edad, lleva 5 años con el departamento y es hijo de un oficial de departamento que tiene 42 años de servicio y sigue en el servicio. La investigación va a continuar con el sospechoso que estamos buscando. También tenemos nuestra división de asuntos internos que van a investigar la investigación administrativa, y tenemos nuestra unidad de investigaciones especiales que van a hacer la investigación criminal sobre las acciones del oficial que disparó. También el fiscal del condado va a tener su investigación de este evento. Así que de nuevo le damos gracias a Dios que ayer no falleció nadie. Me preguntaron, anoche pedí oraciones para un muchacho de 15 años de edad y me preguntaron quién es ese muchacho. Cuando estábamos en el hospital ayer, había una familia afroamericana que el hijo tuvo daños en su espalda, y mi corazón me dijo que tenemos que orar por ese muchacho que tenía unos daños en la columna, y para que Dios lo ayude a esa familia. ¿Ok? ¿Alguna pregunta antes de irme? Porque tengo que irme para la academia. Tenemos como 200 familiares ahí para nuestro evento de excelencia que vamos a celebrar.
Con respecto a los balazos que recibió el oficial, ¿cuántos fueron y en qué parte del cuerpo?
Sabemos que tenemos 2 heridas aquí alto. No sabemos si es un tiro o todavía, pero sí sabemos que el tiro abajo del el chaleco de parabala fue aquí abajo, bajito. La operación fue muy buena, pero acuérdese que cuando una persona tiene un balazo en esa área, tenemos que preocuparnos sobre la infección y cosas así que tenemos que seguir orando por él y su familia. Y también por la familia del sospechoso. El hijo siempre va a ser hijo, la hija siempre va a ser hija, y madre siempre va a querer a a su familiar, porque así son las madres, y también mis pensamientos están con esa familia. Okay? Thank you all very much. Councilmember, I don't mean to be rude.
No.
Can I turn it over to you? We can stick around for a couple minutes, and then I'm
Just
going to go to
one
the academy.
minute, just 1 minute. I did visit with the officer this morning, and I asked him if there was anything he would like to share. And as a family member, a friend of the family, he wanted to make sure that he expressed how grateful he was for the immediate response and for the care that he was given that saved his life. And he truly believes that and understands that. And he has a long road ahead, and we want to keep him in our thoughts and prayers, and to make sure that we support all of our police officers. Would you please make sure that we get the word out today that we need that last suspect in custody, because we do not want this type of crime on our streets, in our neighborhoods. No one should be subject to this type of criminal behavior in any community. So please make sure that we get the word out today. I appreciate everyone being here as always. And as the Chair of Public Safety and Homeland Security, I'm very grateful to our Houston Police Department. I'm grateful to anyone that reported. And I also want to keep in my thoughts and prayers the victims that were subjected to this criminal activity, this violence overnight. And I'm truly sorry that they had to go through this. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Chief, do you have another update there from the officer?
Unless there's a change of condition, there will be no update. But it's stable, exactly.
All right, thank you guys for having the patience to stick with us, waiting for that press conference to begin, and then throughout the conference you heard from Police Chief Art Acevedo, as well as Council Member for District A, Brenda Stardig, who's a family friend. I want to run down what we learned about the officer who was shot and about the suspects in custody, as well as the suspect who was shot and killed on scene. So what we know about the two suspects who are in custody, one is a 17-year-old, the other is 39. The chief didn't go into detail too much, but says there is criminal history there. They're looking for that third suspect, and you heard the chief's plea for that person to turn himself in. You heard the plea to loved ones of that suspect to have him turn himself in. The chief says, we will find you. We will get you, because he said if there's anything he knows about this community, it's that no one here stands for violence against their neighbors, against strangers, against anyone here. Now, as for the officer, he's 29 years old, a 5-year vet of HPD. His dad has also served with the department for 42 years. His injuries are to his lower extremities, according to the chief, and he is probably going to stay in the hospital at Memorial Hermann for at least a week if there are no complications. But the chief expressed real concern because of the area of his injuries. And Chief also said he's been through this so many times before that he knows that there are often complications in these kind of cases. What I thought was really interesting from the chief was that he called the officer a character, just like his dad, and actually saw a tweet from the officer, 5 years ago when he graduated from UT, and he was outside the Austin Police Department and said, I just graduated and I want to be an officer, and Chief tweeted at him then, and now they happen to work in the same department that Acevedo now leads, having previously served as chief in Austin. The rundown of exactly what happened. Again, the chief didn't provide a very, very clear timeline, but I'm going to outline a little bit more. So, 4 suspects carjacked a man who was pumping gas. The man warned the suspects, I'm on fumes. This isn't the car you want to take. They took it anyway, ran out of gas nearby, and abandoned that vehicle. They ended up at a church. That's where they interacted with this priest. The priest says he was on his knees praying for them not to hurt him when he heard them pull the trigger twice. but the gun didn't discharge for some reason. Not satisfied, the chief says they beat the priest, took 2 cell phones from him, and then continued on this spree. Their next victim was a woman who was in an F-150. They knocked on her window with the gun, told her they wanted her cell phone, her purse. They carjacked her, took her truck. They took that to the HEB near Scott and Tristan, and that's where the shooting happened. That's where officers caught up with those men. There was the shootout. The chief says the details of that and the exact timeline are still being looked into. There are 3 separate investigations underway, 2 within HPD with internal affairs. The special investigations team that the chief started when he came to HPD is also going to be looking into it. And then, as is customary, the DA's office will also be investigating the shooting. Now, police say they are looking for surveillance video of the area where the shooting happened. We know that there's already some available because we've gotten our hands on it the moments before and after the shooting. He also said 2 of the officers involved in that altercation with the suspect who was shot, they have body camera video that isn't going to be released. He was very clear about that because it is part of this officer-involved shooting investigation. I'm trying to think of any other big takeaways that we have here. Just the call for the final suspect who's out there to turn himself in. The chief called the officer who was shot, again, 3 times, a great guy. Says we're going to find the suspect who was involved here. Running through my notes, I think those were all the big takeaways. We did hear also from Brenda Stardig, as I mentioned, Councilwoman for District A on the Houston City Council, and she's a family friend of both the officer and his father, who is a longtime officer with HPD, and she says the officer has expressed that he's very grateful for the response and care he's received, and that's something that the chief mentioned, that he was thankful for the incredible care from the doctors and the nurses that this officer has received at Memorial Hermann. So we know so many of you have shared your thoughts and prayers for the officer, for the priest. Now we know the 2 other folks who were carjacked overnight, but those investigations are all ongoing. So we may get more information today. It seems like the chief was very passionate and very he was very excited about sharing, not excited is not the right word, eager, very eager to share the details about the 2 suspects they have in custody when that information is confirmed, and also to find that 4th suspect. Jaime, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think we're still waiting to talk to the priest who was assaulted during the crime spree to see how he's doing. So we are hoping to bring that to you all soon. I recommend that you would also keep it on our Facebook page and also the KHU app. As soon as we get that information, we will send out a notification to your phone so that you can get that update. And of course, also we will send out any updates on the suspects, also if any other arrests are being made.
All right, and with that, we will wrap this up. Again, a press conference that was supposed to have started an hour ago just wrapped up with the chief. When we finish this, you can go ahead and play it back, but a reminder, it doesn't start until probably 25 minutes into the video
correct.
if you want to skip my rambling and get straight to the chief. I hope you have a wonderful day.